I'm 100% living my dream. I mean, I get to ride dirt bikes anytime I want. Not a lot of people get to say that they do their job is their passion and their hobby as well.
Vicki Golden is going to take gold in Los Angeles. Did that just happen? Oh, wow.
Vicki's got it. You know, she raced, she's a free rider. But, you know, the most impressive thing is she's a people person.
Really hardworking, great human. Don't tell her no, because she'll prove you wrong.
And there goes Vicki Golden again. Absolutely fantastic riding from Golden.
We talk to her like she's one of us, and we treat her exactly like one of us, you know? Like, there's no difference between her or me. She's bad. She's hands down one of the gnarliest people riding. Like, I don't even put her in a category of like, oh, you're gnarly for a girl. It's like, no, you're straight up gnarly.
She's really made it. She's not slowing down, she's not stopping. She really is that bad babe's boss, and she runs that title really well.
I couldn't find my niche. I wanted to race and it didn't make me happy. I switched career paths, went to freestyle, it didn't quite make me fully happy. And at the end of the day, it turned into whatever is on two wheels, I love doing it.
She's like in such a strange category because no one ever talks about Vicki and is like, oh, Vicki's good for a girl. Like, they never put that together with her. They always just say like Vicki is good because she like breaks the mold with like being the female rider, because like I always tell her, I'm like, if you tuck that ponytail in, you could never tell.
You know, it's in her DNA. I mean, for some people, you know, we're born into it and others find it along the way. And you know, you could tell that she just was born on a dirt bike. Her story is just, you know, like no other. I mean, she comes from, you know, her dad just loved riding dirt bikes.
My dad was a big dirt bike fan. So he had them growing up and I would always see them, and I just had to ask. I'm like, I want to get one, I want to get one. Bugged my parents long enough, and surely that Christmas, there's a CRF 50 waiting for me under the tree, and that's pretty much how it all started. It kind of turned into just a family sport where, you know, it was something that me and my family could go do on the weekends and just enjoy it. Some people ride bicycles, some people, you know, find other things, and it was just for us, it was dirt bikes. My parents never really pushed me to do the things that we were doing. We were doing them for obviously the main reason of just pure fun and enjoyment and getting to spend time with the family, but it took a lot of work for my parents to get us there. There was no easy route, and just seeing them put so much work just at work, working 2 jobs, full-time jobs, and then still finding time to get these bikes ready, take us riding, and it was just, it's insane to see that much work go into a fun hobby.
Yeah. This one's cool. Dominates the 125, 250 women's class at Glen Helen.
My progression was a little bit different. We couldn't afford to go to any amateur nationals. Growing up, I mean, we didn't have girls' class, we didn't have women's class, and my dad was actually to a point where, you know, I was always in boys' classes, and there was a few other girls at the track, and he was the one that would push to have a girls' class and a women's class at the local races, and just so that I would have another class to ride and not always having to ride with all the boys. When you grow up around boys and have to race against boys, I mean, it's just a different atmosphere. They don't care if you're first, second, last, second to last. They do not want to get beat by a girl, and their parents definitely don't want to have their kid get beat by a girl. My dad had plenty of memories, and it was kind of a weekend joke every time that there would always be one kid growing up when I'd pull off the track, and there'd be a kid crying because he got beat by a girl, and it was just endless. So that kind of just became the joke of like, oh, you made another kid cry this weekend. Unfortunately, when we had a kind of a vet day, and my dad would go ride vet day on a Monday, and they actually put that in with quads for whatever reason, and he went and practiced that day and got kind of tangled up with a quad, and he shot off the face of a jump without his bike because of a quad. So he ended up being paralyzed from basically like mid-chest down. And that pretty much changed our whole lives from there on out. It was definitely a scary experience. I mean, no one wants to see anyone get hurt, especially to that extent, and definitely not your own father. You know, that's your hero growing up. So it was completely life-changing. I mean, we had to pretty much redo the whole house. I mean, just so it could be wheelchair accessible, you know, and not to mention, you know, just having your dad in the hospital for weeks on end, you know, months in, months out, and just never being able to bounce back. He tried as hard as he could, and he fought every single day to make a normal life for himself and for us. But at the end of the day, he just had so much nerve pain, so many issues, that it just wasn't something that he could bounce back from. He tried as hard as he could. He still tried working on the bikes and keeping us riding and taking me riding and doing all that, but that's a lot for someone in his position. Like I said, he never got to bounce back and be pain-free. There was never a day where he was like, okay, I feel great, you know? And that was like, I guess, like the overwhelming part for me. It was just like, well, if I want to go ride tomorrow, I have to wash the bike, I have to change the oil, I have to do the air filter, and I have to do all these things when I'm 13. So I had a lot of growing up to do, and I was pretty much on my own for a lot of the races. It's pretty much up to me if I wanted to keep doing it. If I did, I had to figure out how to work on these things. So when I was like 12 years old, I read the manual the bike came with, and thankfully, if I was changing something that I didn't know where it went, we were really lucky enough to have 2 bikes. So if I remember distinctly changing a set of bars when I was 12. I had no idea where the kill switch went versus where the clutch is, and so I just remember looking at the other bike and being like, okay, that's how it goes, and I would just put it back together that way. But thankfully I had that, and I had 2 bikes, and I just read the manual and figure out how to do it at 12 years old. For whatever reason, I never put that accident in fear with riding dirt bikes. It never correlated. And I think just because maybe I was so young that probably saved me. If I was any older, I don't think we'd be sitting here talking about my story. But my dad, still after the injury, loved dirt bikes. Wanted to talk about them, loved them. So thankfully his passion and his love for the bikes didn't get ruined, and he showed me that. So obviously, Honda, another Honda. This is me riding my dad's Honda 125, and once again, on a first bike ever, Honda. Something about him, I don't know, my dad he was a die-hard Honda fan, and he cringed when we had to go get a KTM 65 because Honda didn't make any 60s, and they still don't, but he cringed when we had to go get something else. And this is a small one, but this was the KTM, the one and only that I was allowed to ride, since that was the only option. But obviously I had to get a 60 for a while until I could get big enough to ride 80s, and of course he just went straight and got a Honda for it.
That's a good one, right?
Well, a classic Honda. That's me on my dad's bike. I bought that 2-stroke for a reason, and that's literally because my dad was diehard Honda 2-stroke guy. And could I have gotten a modern bike that is way less rigid, probably has a little bit more speed? Absolutely, but I just couldn't get myself to really get one of those. I knew, I was like, I gotta get one, and if I get one, then that's a little piece of my past with him. Just riding that red 2-stroke around, it's just such a special place, in my heart and in my past, that Like, I could never get rid of that thing. It's just like, I have it forever.
This caption is good though. Vicki Golden rattled and rolled her CR85 to a third in the women's class.
CR85.
Yeah, I'm still on what your CR does to this day. That's why we gotta bring bolts every time we go ride it. Here, you take this, I'm gonna lose it.
My first pro race was definitely overwhelming. When I started the WMX, it was pretty much in its prime. It was like 2009 was the year I started, and that was when it was on Saturdays with the men, and it had like a TV package as well. So I joined at the most promising point. Thankfully, it was at Glen Helen, local race, home course, so I at least kind of had an idea, but it was insane. The tracks are completely different on a pro national, and I was just, a Grom still, just trying to take it all in and just go racing and survive the track. And yeah, it ended up really good. I think I went 4-4 or something like that and got a 4th overall my first ever pro race. So I was blown away that, I was able to go out there and do that well. My dad was stoked. I mean, he's always wanted to see that. Being able to have him at the races and still just chasing that dream, I mean, you can't ask for much more. I raced WMX the series for a few years after that. I didn't really get, any better, much else. It was kind of just like a stalemate. Rode around in 4th a lot. I didn't really get put on, the best equipment anymore, and I just wasn't enjoying riding around in 4th place by myself. That's not racing, that's just, riding. So I just kind of looked at it and was like, if I'm making this much money, which wasn't a lot, and I'm not having fun, what am I doing here? So I left and decided to just go my own route, and I started going to race Arenacross instead, because I figured if I'm not gonna make a whole lot of money, I better have fun doing it.
I respect her because she never wanted like the easy way out of anything. She wanted to race with the guys.
Hello, Arenacross.com fans. We're down here in the pits now with Vicki Golden, the first female ever to race in the Arenacross Lights class. This is a milestone in Arenacross, and the fans last night were So excited to see you out there.
Arenacross is a smaller scale of racing that is basically in your hockey arenas, your basketball arenas, and it's so tight and technical because it's such a small course that it's super cutthroat racing. I showed up to my first Arenacross and had no clue what I was getting into. It was just more, this is how I'm gonna get my Supercross pro license for men's racing. So I loaded up my truck and drove to Colorado and didn't know what to expect. Once I started racing though, it's insane. You never get a break. There's people everywhere. It's the most cutthroat racing I've ever experienced because there's no nice way to get around someone. You have to move them or they're gonna move you. So I learned really quick how to ride aggressive. No one cared that I was a female out there. They weren't nice at all.
You're competing against all guys. What's it been like this series? And you're like, oh, it's a lot different. And then I was off to a really good start in Reno, but then when I approached the finish line, one of the guys hit me and I ended up going off the track. I don't expect them not to hit me just because I'm a girl. That would be stupid. That's why I'm there. It's to learn. I don't want to be treated differently. That's a cool one.
My Supercross career wasn't the best. I did meet the goal that I set for myself, which was making a night show. Unfortunately, both years I got sick from EpsteinBarr. It's basically kind of something you get from overtraining. When I crashed with Geico, I lacerated my liver, collapsed my lungs, broke some ribs, and EpsteinBarr was much gnarlier than that. There was no time frame of when I would feel better, how I would feel better. There was no recovery program. It was just sit and wait. I was sleeping like 20 hours out of 24 hours a day and not feeling any better. And I just felt like I was just sitting there wasting my life away because all I wanted to do was go ride and go train and get better, and I could barely leave the house. But I still, on paper, I met the goal that I wanted, which was to make a night show.
Making a night show at Supercross is not easy. I truly believe that when I was racing the same year that Vicki was racing, that was like one of the hardest years. Like we were racing the 250 class and we had Tomac and all these people that are winning the titles now that we were having to race against. It was tough, and just to make a night show was tough. And on her side, it was twice as tough because she was the first girl to try to qualify for a night show, and the hype behind that and the cameras and everyone, like interviews, and like there's so much added pressure to all that people don't really see, that probably made it harder. But it's, again, the never say die attitude. Like, she figured it out.
It was just an unreal feeling to be able to go line up and do a gate drop finally for Supercross. The race went horrible. I mean, I didn't really expect much. I could barely put a lap together, so I wasn't actually even like, you know, I was just trying to survive out there and not look completely idiotic, but it was actually pretty funny. I was literally the one person like that didn't get lapped. So I was on the track by myself, and I came back around and went down Monster Alley and just was like, you know, I'm gonna have fun. So I just wheelied down Monster Alley, and the entire crowd lost their minds and they were just screaming. And I was just like, oh, no way. This is kind of surreal that all these people are screaming for me, and I'm basically in like 14th. These motorcycles are really loud, especially if you have more than one on the track. And to be able to hear people screaming over your motorcycle is one of the most unreal feelings you could ever have in your entire life. X Games started doing women's motocross, and that's kind of the same time I started not really enjoying women's motocross outdoors, and I started catering towards this Arenacross, Supercross style of riding. The biggest thing that stood out for me winning my first X Games was I went from racing the same women and I was getting fourth and not really even getting close to them to winning by a lot.
She was looking sharp.
And I think that was the part that separated them tonight.
Great one-handed whip as Golden takes the gold.
And that was a surreal feeling that I was just like, man, like this is it. Like this is what I put in that work for. And to finally feel like it truly paid off was like the best feeling in the world. And then you obviously get to take home this gold medal. And you know, after that you get to run a #1 plate. And it was just like seeing that #1 plate on my bike for the first time was like I finally made it. Like I finally did what I came to do.
Vicki Golden is going to take gold in Los Angeles over Rutledge. Did that just happen? Unbelievable turn of events.
I was actually able to get 3 consecutive gold medals, which no woman was actually ever able to do that in, you know, that category.
3-peat. I remember that. I only have 1, and she's got 3. Like, that's so badass, and it's a cool feeling and something you can't really put into words, especially being a kid growing up in that era of X Games and like the mecca of action sports, and just being a part of it now is really cool, and I'm a proud homie.
And then obviously, you know, I moved on to compete in men's best whip. I didn't really see best whip as like a goal for me. I just ended up throwing a pretty decent whip over the finish when I won my women's event at X Games.
That is one flat whip from a 19-year-old lady who is happy to be the gold medalist once again.
And then that kind of sparked like, oh, that was sick. You should compete in best whip. And I'm like, no way. And then I was like, well, maybe I should. You know, I didn't really expect anything to come of it. And sure enough, I got an invite to X Games Best Whip to compete with all these men that are the best dudes in the world that ride dirt bikes, and then there's me.
That's the name of the rider. There goes Vicki Golden again. Absolutely fantastic riding from Golden.
And got a bronze medal in that, which was unheard of back then to even be competing in that category with those types of riders.
She thought of herself at this level of the sport, and she knew the way she had to prove it, and she went out and she rides with the baddest dudes there is. She races with the baddest guys there is. She jumps with the baddest people in the industry, and to me, that's incredible because like she never like puts herself in a category of being different. And like nowadays, it's crazy times where everyone almost wants to be different, and she doesn't want to be looked at as different.
The technique of being able to race and kind of transition that into free riding, it kind of goes hand in hand. And I think like a lot of the top free riders, like they started at racing, and it kind of builds a really good foundation of like technique, and it kind of transitions over. Like now her transitioning over into freestyle, like we're fortunate enough to be friends with some of the best freestylers around. So she has that guidance of like people like teaching her new tricks and flips and stuff. And yeah, it's just really cool to see. Like it's just takes me back to that never say die attitude. Like tell her she can't do it, she'll prove you wrong.
So pretty much all the freestyle riders, they were trying to convince me to be and telling me how you're gonna make money, you should go do shows and learn tricks and just be a freestyle rider. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm like, maybe later. I want to go race. You know, I just had goals that I wanted to go racing, and I just ignored them for a long time. And, you know, eventually once the EpsteinBarr kicked in and I realized that I'm not going to be able to really put in 100% effort to be able to go racing the way I want to go racing, it was time to be a freestyle rider.
I think motorcycles in general was like one outlet or another. You're a racer, you're a freestyler, and that like whole gray area in between was kind of forgotten about. And so for myself and imagination, my whole goal for this whole thing was to create a platform for people that it's not just about race results and wins and championships or the biggest trick in freestyle. With the age that we live in with social media and all this stuff, it's kind of just go out and ride our dirt bikes and have fun. And that's what sparked this whole idea of this imagination thing, and it's now turned into something that's so sick, in my opinion, and we're basically creating skate parks for motorcycles.
Red Bull Imagination is definitely a unique place where we build big stuff that we're not even sure we're gonna be able to hit, and we figure it out together and just like vibe off each other and have a good time. And Tyler has just taken this to an unbelievable level of creating it so people can see it and feel the vibe that we create every day.
Vicki's bad. She's, I hope my daughters can learn something from her being around. Like, you don't have to be a dude to do certain things good. I talk shit to Vicki like she's one of the dudes, and if she's not jumping something, I'm like straight up with her, because it's like, if she's jumping it, we better be jumping it. It goes hand in hand, and I'm the first one to call her on her shit if she's scared to do something. Like, hey, I'm like, quit thinking about it. Like, you're better than half the dudes that are here. Like, just fucking jump the jump, you know? And she'll be like, all right.
Really, when I learned a lot about Vicki was when she was at Imagination. She had to dig deep, I mean, really deep, to let it hang out. You know, Twitch, all the boys were talking to her, and it was just like, you know, she trusts those guys. And it was just cool to see all of them interacting and stuff, because it's the real deal. It ain't fucking kids play out there. You know, it's life or death is what it is. And I'm really proud of her that she dug deep and held it together and let her rip.
Surround yourself with the best to be the best. That's pretty much how it is being a woman in a male-dominated sport. I approach things a lot differently than all the other boys. A lot of them get pissed off and fired up, and then I almost get like, you know, my confidence is shook. I don't really know if I belong, and it's just different, you know? I've watched Bierman case something, get pissed off at himself, and go do it again, to where if I case that, I'd be like, oh no, maybe I'm rethinking what I just did.
It is a bit more challenging. I think the hardest part is more on the fear aspect, that the fear side is more hard for a girl. It's the way that we're wired. So yeah, when a guy goes out and does this huge triple or new freestyle trick, for a girl, it is that little bit more challenging.
She did the front flip. I was tripping. I've never thought about wanting to do one.
Obviously, like, the front flip she did is mind-boggling. For one, like, no one has done the no-handed front flip, and then for her to do it and just everything that she had to overcome, like, she got hurt filming for it, she did her back, and then she was learning it to a bag to get used to it, and then broke her wrists, and just duct tapes them, and then goes for it and lands it, and it's mind-boggling too, because like, just her threshold of pain compared to like normal people is just so crazy, but she just turns it off and does what she knows how to do.
I mean, to me, front flip is everything that we're taught to do racing. It's like everything ass backwards from that. Like, you hit a ramp and being a racer, like getting an endo and like getting kicked over the bars, your first instinct is to save it. And with that ramp and the front flip, like you just got to go with it and just let Jesus take the wheel.
When she gets something on her mind, she does it. I've never seen her really back down from anything.
Where I'm at now in my life and in my career is kind of a place where I've, one, never been in an aspect of having the fans that I do, which is, you know, a lot of women that want to ride or want to be better, and they just don't know how to do it. And I just kind of feel compelled to share my knowledge and help.
Ultimately, it's really hard to be what you can't see. So for me growing up, I wanted this career of being a BMX bandit. I couldn't see the future of Olympics, world titles, world first, mountain bike. I didn't know that I could even make a career out of it because no one was doing it. And I really couldn't relate to the men that were doing it because they also hadn't forged that pathway. So for women like Vicki and myself who have been so diverse, crossed over into many different disciplines, we really have forged the way. So male, female, whatever it's been, she's been that icon that she's been seen and visible. So now for the girls coming through, they can be what they can see in the future. And that was a gap that I guess we both had, but we've really just forged that way. And for the likes of both of us, we not only have got to the top of our careers, but we've left that ladder down for the future generations.
I mean, I have done so much on this bike that I have the knowledge and I've put in the time to learn these things, and why wouldn't I, you know, give it to the next generation to help them and make it easier and not make the mistakes that I have made? Because, you know, that's what being a role model is, you know? I mean, you want to help the next generation, no matter who it is, to get better. And that feeling of when a little kid can get something to click and they figured it out, you know, that's just as rewarding as, you know, any competition any day.
The future of female action sport is in the strongest position it's ever been, and it's not slowing down. I think for me and Vicki growing up, we had our icons and our idols. I had BMX boys on the walls as my icons. They were the poster boys, and now the young girls are growing up with those role models and those girls that they can really relate to, and she's really set a solid foundation. I think such a big legacy that she can be so proud of.
I get so stoked when I see girls come up to her and like want to ride, and not only look at her as like a fan, but just how much she's done for the sport without even her knowing she's done it. Like, she's escalated so much of the sport and what is possible for girls, and I think that's why so many people look up to her.
I think the legacy that she's leaving is she's literally one of the baddest chicks ever to throw a leg over a dirt bike. She didn't have any girls to look up to that road that were good. She's hands down one of the gnarliest people riding. Like, I don't even put her in a category of like, oh, you're gnarly for a girl. It's like, no, you're straight up gnarly.
To keep pushing limits, I mean, it's pretty much all that I'm surrounded with. I'm surrounded with the best of the best, and I hold myself to their standards, and I hold myself to a standard that I know how to ride, and that is to the standards of riding with my friends, and my friends are the best in the world at what they do. So I'm gonna make damn sure that I stay to that standard and keep pushing it until I can't push anymore. I do get really frustrated some days, but I have to take a step back. And at the end of the day, I just kind of think like if my dad was able to see me here doing this stuff, his mind would be blown away. So just want to ride and make him proud.